Hi folks, I'm Josh Gahn for Tracy Tool and Machine Repair. Today we're going to do a rebuild on a Mitsuba SM17B starter motor. The customer brought it to me, and the magnets that should be glued inside what I would call the field frame or the field housing, they came unglued. We looked at the potential to glue them back into place, but one of the magnets has shredded itself. So my customer found a replacement kit that comes with the magnet housing or the field frame, a brush holder assembly, a front end frame or end bell or end cap or bearing housing assembly, 2 bolts to hold all of it together, and 2 bolts to hold the brush assembly into the housing. Now, this kit came from Brute Manufacturing. Hold on. Brute Performance, right there we go. Now, I have no affiliation with this Brute Manufacturing or Performance or what have you. Nobody's paying anybody except for my customer paying me and him paying these Brute people for the parts. So the directions on the website say that your armature, if it's not all beat up, should be good. Now, the armature in our instance is in very good condition. I was an electric motor mechanic for many years before I came to open this shop. And when I was an electric motor mechanic, we had a thing called a growler. And I have a small one here for things just like this. So we're going to give it a growl. And if you want to know what a growler is and how it works, you can just search for armature growler and it'll come up. If I remember correctly, Mr. Pete has a pretty good, thorough video on what it is and how it works. We'll give it a growl. I've already checked it for grounds. I've actually already growled it, but for the sake of movies, we'll do that here. We'll check it for ground, and then we'll assemble this thing and give it a test. The ground test simply tests the insulation system in the armature to ground to make sure it's not leaking. You would check that with a megohm meter, but this is going to do the job just fine. So we'll take one end of this, the leads that come off the growler, and we'll hook it to the shaft. The other end will run around the commutator and make sure that the electricity we put in there doesn't pass from the commutator through the windings and leak into the shaft, if that makes sense to you. So what will happen is this gauge will go to 30 if there's a ground, and I'll show you how that works. We'll take both of our leads here and we'll push, well, we'll set the camera down first. So we'll push the ground test button. Here's our leads. Nothing happens. Now if we stick them together and we push this button, so we'll hook our ground here onto the shaft and we'll take our probe and probe the armature, or the commutator rather, and we'll go right around and make sure that none of the bars are grounded. And then we'll touch the shaft, our probe to the shaft to make sure we've got a good ground, which we do. So we'll call this armature good. And this is just an extra step for provenance. You can't be in business and say, oh yeah, armature's probably good. I'm going to charge you money to rebuild your starter. Let's prove it. Let's prove it before we make the repair. As I said, we've already gone and done this off camera to make sure that the fella didn't have to order a bunch of parts and find out his armature's bad. Now we'll get out the kit, verify that the new parts are a correct fit, and we'll assemble. Now, one of the things I failed to mention is this kit does not come with the brush holder housing. That would be the mounting assembly for this starter. And I think that is because this mounting feet are different between the 17A and the 17B. So you reuse this part from your original starter, and we'll just change this brush holder assembly inside. Is that better? You got to be real careful when you clamp it in the vise so you don't break the feet. And it shouldn't be that tight anyway. Got to save this bushing here also. Oh, and the nuts. Oh, okay. Because this is a negative ground system, this Phillips screw here, which is actually JIS because you can see the little round dot, that grounds the brush holders to the ground, and this piece up at the top connects here to provide the positive side of the DC. These new mounting bolts are the mounting bolts that go in the feet. These new mounting bolts are the ones that hold the whole assembly together. Okay, got to get that out. Now there's no reason to mark the orientation of the brush holder in the housing because it can only go one way. These two holes are for the bolts that hold the whole assembly together. This single hole at the top is for your brush holder ground or negative. And this post has to pass through that hole. That's the only place it can happen. Now, because this isn't a motor that runs constantly, we don't have a lot of dust, so we don't have to worry too much about cleaning, but we'll clean this up. And we're ready to install the new brush holder with new brushes. And I misspoke. This does come with the plastic bushing where it passes through the housing. So, oh, there's a seal in here too. Okay, so what we're going to do before we even do that is this is a oil-soaked bronze bushing for a bearing. So we're going to put a couple drops of 3-in-1 in there just to have make sure there's enough lubrication for the future. A light machine oil, that should be more than sufficient. Okay. Now there's a little O-ring on there as well to keep water out. People like to say to prevent the ingress of water. Yeah, to keep water out. Then the bushing will sit on there. And then the washer and the nut. And we've got this 10 millimeter and a ratchet would be ideal for this job, but this is what we've got in our hands. Before we tighten that down, we should put this in. Now this kit came with this little guy. I think I'd be inclined to put a dab of Loctite or thread locker on there. Yeah, because that's got that nice big flat head on there instead of the JIS screw. That's what we'll do. Is that a 6 or an 8? Let's find out. 4. Nowhere close. Just a dash. It doesn't need to be too much. Now the next step is kind of tricky, so that we can keep the brushes located correctly as they're kind of popping out of their spots in there. We're going to make sure they're all located correctly, and then we'll take our armature off the growler here. And we're going to locate that first, which is just a simple matter of lining up the shaft and the hole and make sure all the brushes will contact the armature. And all the brushes move and don't break. Let's do that now. Just give them a push. See, there's a little bit of spring in there. There we go. I was just holding it on a funny angle. There we go. So everything moves. All right. Let's move to the vise. This kit comes with an O-ring for either housing. Because this goes in a side-by-side on this particular application, more of that ingress of water going on. Let's locate that next. That's worth noting. There's a notch here in the field housing to locate this piece. You can see on the original I made witness marks here with a marker. Here. That is to line up right here. So we'll have to be careful because these magnets will want to pull on the armature. Whoops, there we go. We'll have to make sure that it doesn't damage the windings on its way in. That'll be a two-handed operation for sure. Let's go. Okay, now that we've got the armature and the housing and the fields all assembled, we'll get our other O-ring and we'll mount it on the lip. Oop. There we go. And then our new housing with the new bearing. You know, it appears as though there's some type of seal in there. It all matches up with the old one. Okay. Only thing, I've got to find these bolts in there. One thing I could do is I could take the old bolts which I've seemed to have misplaced. But I could take the old bolts, cut the heads off, and set them in there to locate the whole thing. Once I had the whole thing together, I can take them out, put the new ones in. And I may have to do that. Okay, I didn't need to cut any bolts apart. The magnets aren't too strong to allow you to slide these new bolts right down through, no problem. So drawing up this top end frame is not the place for your Milwaukee 1/4 inch drive impact and nailing these things down quick, fast, in a hurry. This is time to take and draw these two bolts up evenly so that this gap closes evenly, because there is a lip that holds the two together. And you know, sometimes I meet young guys that want to be real tough and macho and hammer shit together real quick. This is not the time and place for that. So drawing it up easy with a 1/4 inch ratchet is the ticket here. Okay, we've got it all together. We'll just take a continuity test and make sure we've got a circuit, and we'll give it a test run. Let's go. All right. I've just got it clamped in the vise to keep it from shooting off into a low Earth orbit. I'm going to use this battery pack here. The battery jump pack will connect our negative to the ground if I left myself enough room, which I did. And we're just going to give it a tap. Boop. So we'll turn the battery pack on. Excellent. Okay, folks, I'm Josh Gahn for Tracy Tool and Machine Repair in Northwest Pennsylvania, Northeast Ohio. Here we've got a Mitsuba SM17B with a Brute Performance rebuild kit. If you're in the area and you need quality mechanical repairs, give me a call. I'm here to help. We'll see you next time. I forgot to say, Tracy Tool and Machine Repair. We fix stuff.